record. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Friday's webinar from Annika Digital. It's Ed Truman presenting today, and myself and Stanley, who's hosting. Please ignore, I'm not really Jess Harvey. I haven't had a change. I just logged in. I've just logged in as her this morning. We're going to do a quick poll while we get a few more people registering. We've got a lot of people registered for this one. Analytics 4 is something that a lot of people are very interested in. So I'm going to start with a quick poll. So please fill in the poll. I will read out the questions and the answers because it then comes through on the recording. I've noticed a typo, but how often do you use Google Analytics? No, I'm just learning, or it's not my responsibility. Yes, I do use it, but only when I have a problem or when I need a report. Yes, most months to create a report. Yes, most weeks. Yes, it's every day. It's an essential part of my job. So it seems to be split in three ways at the moment. I've got about 25% of you saying I'm just learning, or it's not your responsibility. I've got about, that's gone up to about a third. We've got 25% of you saying that you use it most months because you have to create reports, and then about 20% of people saying it's an essential part of your job. So yeah, there's a few newbies here, Ed, so as I suspected, you're going to have to make sure that you sort of explain it as we go along. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to pass over to Ed now. I'm going to turn my video off, but I am listening in the background, and I will be answering the chat. So if any of you have got any questions, please fill in the Q&A, and please put your chats in, and I'm quite happy to answer those as we go along. So I'm passing over to Ed. Thank you very much, Ed.
Hi, well, welcome everybody to today's webinar. So it's obviously on the topic of GA4, which is Google's latest reincarnation of Google Analytics. So this launched late last year, where it officially rebranded to Google Analytics 4. And at that point, it became the default setup for when you create a new Google Analytics account or a new Google Analytics property. So Google is trying to encourage you to adopt GA4. So GA4 is quite different to what you've been used to previously. If you've ever used Analytics for Firebase, which was Google's app analytics tracking product, some things in GA4 will seem quite familiar to you, because what they've done is essentially merged the web product of Google Analytics with the app product of Firebase, and it brought it together in a brand new setup, which is basically being built from the ground up. So GA4 is quite a fundamental shift in both kind of design and layout, and the way it's been built behind the scenes. So it's offering tons more kind of functionality, flexibility, and it starts to answer a lot of the frustrations and problems that users may have had with Google Analytics in the past. So it is brand new. It's only been out a few months, like I said. So at the moment, this is a product that's heavily in development. And will continue to be developed over the coming months. They're only going to add more functionality to this, and it's going to get better and better as the tweaks and changes are rolled out over time. But the main message is, if you're running Google Analytics already, then look to also install GA4 in addition to your current setup. Don't be afraid to try it out, get the tag installed onto the site, and start collecting data under this new property. So this isn't a direct replacement to any analytics you had before. You should keep that running. But for those of you that want to dip your toe in the water and get started with GA4, then you now have the option to do so. So in this session, I'm gonna go through some of the cool new features in GA4. As well as kind of give you some kind of like how-to steps to maybe kind of like replicate some of the functionality you may have had in previous analytics. You know, things like setting up your goals and some of the kind of go-to reports that you used previously. So this is the evolution of GA. So Universal Analytics has been around since 2013, and it's really shared much of the kind of same fundamental technology that classic versions of Google Analytics has. So this is a product that's been around for a long time. So it was well overdue an overhaul. With GA3 Universal Analytics, which was launched in 2013 and is probably what most of you guys would be using now, they were able to kind of add to that and build on that over time. But the limits of that product were really starting to show in a ecosystem, in an environment now where you know, we've got multi-device, multi-device attribution, users on different devices. We've got things like user privacy concerns, cookie protection laws, and things like that. So analytics was really calling out for a lot more flexibility in what it could do and what it could offer. So GA4 is Google Analytics, is Google's new solution to those types of problems. So when you come into GA4 for the first time, so we'll talk about how you actually set up your account and everything later on in this session. But just initially, when you log in, it's very different. It's a very kind of different look and feel. Some things may feel similar, but if just the general layout and the information that's available, and the layout of the kind of menu labels and structure, all very different. So they've given you a brand new user interface that reflects the changes that have happened behind the scenes. So basically, this is like an entire update. There's enhanced visualizations. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be dropping into live demos of this. So I'll jump into the account and give you like a little show around. So let me do that now. So yeah, so this is what you're faced with when you come in for the very first time. Lots of different cards, a lot more kind of extensive to what you've previously had. Everything just available in kind of card format at a snapshot, things like your kind of conversions and top events and things like that, all appearing in here. Detailed insights, so insights that are accessible just at a click of a button. So this is, they've built on the insights feature that was available in Universal Analytics, but they've given you a lot more information, a lot more insights. So straight away, as soon as you come into your account, you can get these automated generated insights based off of your data and what Google interprets from it. So this can be really handy because it can obviously kind of give you snapshot of how your performance is doing, any like anomalies, things that may have dropped, things that have maybe spiked. So they've really kind of gone to town with the insights on this. one thing you should know about GA4 is the actual the setup behind the scenes is quite different. So you'll notice that in GA4 we don't have views. So views are no longer available. Views were traditionally a way to enable you to split out and control the data you see in your report. So, for example, if you had a large website with many different sections, you might have had a view for each particular section, or you may have had a view for mobile traffic or desktop traffic. Or maybe just a view that had a bunch of filters applied to it to filter out internal traffic, etc., etc. So in GA4, that's gone, and it's been replaced by what is called data streams. So data streams are different, are the individual sources that are relevant for different devices, so different entities that your company might have, so different digital entities. So you'll typically have like one data stream for your main website, and then for companies that also have app products or other websites that are linked to that are all part of like the same site, the same brand or whatever. Those data streams can be added to this list. So that's one of the kind of changes that is quite kind of startling when you log in to it. So this is all about combining tracking for apps and tracking for web under one umbrella. And data streams is the way in which that data is pulled in and is organized. So each one of these will have its own measurement ID. And this basically is like the tracking ID that was that you'd probably previously equate to property ID. So this is the measurement ID that is included within the site pixel that goes on to your site. So you'll see down here that when you go to create GA4, you are essentially given a new property, and that property includes a measurement ID collected from the stream itself. So it is a case in which you do need to create a brand new property if you want to use GA4. So it's not a case of just simply hitting the upgrade button. What it will do is give you a brand new property that you will have to then display. That you will have to.
Ed, we've got quite a lot of newbies on the call that might not really understand the difference between a property and a view. Could you just sort of maybe show them the analytics from our original account and just show them that hierarchy so that they understand what we're talking about, the sort of the difference between, the top level, because there's so many people, there's so many people that have not got, are not using analytics. I think it's important that we make sure that they just understand what we mean.
Yeah. Okay. So, so for people that haven't used analytics before, the account structure is basically your analytics account was structured in a hierarchical way, in which you had an account. You would then have a property, which would generally be for each website that you owned. If you did own different websites, it would be at the property level, which is where you would get your tracking code. So the tracking would be done at a property level. For each property, you would then have a view option to be able to set filters based on the data you wanted to see. So that means you could have different views created for different parts of your website, like filtered and unfiltered views, a view for maybe kind of just internal staff, a view for maybe just like the mobile version of your site, for example. So a lot of stuff was controlled at this view level. Within GA4, so if I just navigate to my GA4 property, you'll see that view column no longer exists. So views are a thing of the past. So that's something that's quite different within GA4 when you first log in.
Ed, the other thing is some people are saying they need you to make the screen a little bit bigger because they can't quite see. The other thing, if you're logged in and you can see the chat, I suggest you minimize the chat and make it a full F11. Okay. And then you'll be able to see the screen a little bit bigger. So it's more really for the people that are struggling a little bit with the size.
Yeah. Okay. Let me know how's that.
You probably need to expand it by maybe plus 10% if you do. Maybe if you can go to F11 as well. I don't know whether that will help. That's definitely better for me. What about the guys that are struggling a little bit?
That's about as far as I can go comfortably.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Okay, so still within the interface. So if we just have a little bit of a kind of show around then. So let me go back. Okay, so one thing so one thing you've got with the new GA4 is increased cross-device capabilities because of the way it's actually built and the way it's been designed. GA4 offers increased cross-device capability. So it's got, it's much better now at being able to track users across devices. And it does this through what's called Google Signals. So let me just, there it is. So what you've got now is you've got the option to track by user ID and device. So the old way used to be just simply first-party cookie only, and then if users move between different devices, they would not be tracked. So it was very hard to be able to tie users who switch devices. It was very hard to identify them as being the same user. So what GA4 does is incorporates Google's tracking signals technology, and it does a much better job now at identifying those users if they're logged in on a mobile device or if they're logged in on a desktop device. So basically this is using like Google's kind of like advertising technology to identify users as they move between devices. And this is built into every single report now and the user tracking you see. Whereas previously in Universal Analytics, that was that type of tracking was pretty much like non-existent. So that's one of the kind of powerful new things about GA4, that ability to be able to track users as they move between devices. That's not to say it's 100% accurate. It's not going to be 100% accurate at all, but it does it does a far better job at tracking those users. So if we just give you a quick show around. So one of the nice little overhauls they've done to the basic reporting is we've got this new real-time report. So this is much more kind of comprehensive. This shows your users as they're on your website in real time. So these are kind of currently active users. And what this does is give you a lot of different options and a lot more data than what you had before. So you can see things like kind of current events and activities in progress, current conversions taking place. You can see the pages people are visiting, the traffic sources they came from, the locations. So this is all quite nice, all done in real time. The other thing you've got now, so one of the biggest fundamental changes is that GA4 is now an event-based model. So it's not, so previously GA was a lot more about tracking sessions, as in visits and individual page views. And things were just tracked a bit differently. Now everything, all the tracking you see in GA4 has basically been unified. So everything now is tracked as an individual event. So what you'll see in all of the different reports is individual event names being reported. So there's this is quite a kind of like a fundamental shift. And it's a little bit more in line with what you might see for things like in other product analytics platforms, a little bit more like Adobe, a little bit more like Heap Analytics, where everything is more standardized and event based. So bring it back. Ooh. So what we have now is we've got three types of events essentially. So we've got events that are auto tracked out of the box. So in GA4 you now have auto tracking, which is a really kind of cool feature. So straight out of the box, you have an enhanced auto tracking enabled. So if I just show you here, so it's in data streams. So what you have now is a set number of events that are automatically tracked already. So you have page view tracking, scroll tracking, outbound click tracking, site search tracking, video engagement, file downloads. Those things are all tracked automatically now, which is something that previously wasn't the case and would have to be set up separately. This is all included and it's all enabled when you first set up your account. So that provides you with straight out of the box, extra tracking. In addition to that, Google Analytics provides you with an entire bunch of standard events and recommended events, some of which will get auto captured. So things like first visits, session start, signups, purchases. A lot of those events will be captured automatically. And then Google Analytics is giving you way more functionality to create your own custom events as well. So there's a whole heap of resources on the GA4 Analytics Help Center here, where it references all the new events available to you. So there's a full list here of all the different types of events. So if I go back into this event report, see, this is the area where I'll see a top-level overview of all the events that are tracking within my account, from everything from first visit to session start, as well as custom events that I've set up and put in place. So out of the box, a lot of this stuff will be tracked already, but where you'll have the most fun and most benefit from GA is when you create your own events. Now, the good thing about events in the account is that these can now be easily turned into conversions. So conversions previously were known as goals in GA4, and conversions are basically the desired actions that you want users to take on the site. So whether that be a sign up, whether that be a purchase. So whatever your kind of website objective is, that's what you want to have set as a conversion. And you can have multiple conversions. Google Analytics gives you up to 30 conversion slots now, whereas previously it would give you just 20. So you have a lot more space for additional conversions. The events as well. So you can have up to 500 events pulling into your account. So the quota of number of events and number of conversions you have now is significantly increased. So now with the events coming into the account, if I wanted to turn any of these events into a conversion, I can easily do that at a tick of a button, and I can kind of deactivate or activate it at any time. And replace it with something different. So this is giving you a lot more flexibility than what went previously. Okay. The other really great thing you've got is you've got a new enhanced audience builder. So this is a brand new way to create audiences. And it's got its own designated section. So this is where you will go to build new audiences that you can use for remarketing and use throughout your reports as advanced segments. So this all starts in the audience section down here, and what you can do is define a new audience up here. So what you can do is set your own conditions. So for those that have used advanced segments in the past in GA, this is where you can create an audience based off of activity that's happened on your website. So there's a few new things that you can do that you couldn't do before with this. So there's new kind of condition scoping. So you can basically set rules that say when a user views this page, but does not view this page within the same session or across all sessions, then please add them to this list. So you can start to build audiences in a far more powerful and flexible way. So, for example, I can create a rule where page path contains something like this, and I can give that audience a name. So this could be users that viewed LD live page. And then the other thing they've added to this now is the ability to be able to temporarily exclude people from that list. So I can choose to set rules to permanently exclude certain users or exclude users temporarily. And I can set that membership duration for up to 540 days. So it's really kind of based on how long I want that audience, that particular user, to be a part of that audience. So I can go through that. I can save it. And then those audiences appear in a few different areas. So if I go up to acquisition audience, so those audiences can now be compared in a table and recorded quite differently to what went before. So this was only possible using segments previously in Universe Analytics. Now we've got the ability to be able to see audiences line by line. The other cool thing with audience is GA4 incorporates a certain amount of prediction modeling. So you're not seeing it in this screen view, but let me show you. So so what you've got now in GA4 is new predictive metrics. So GA4 is able to provide you with metrics based on people's propensity to purchase, abandon or churn, or convert and spend on your website. So provided you meet certain quotas that are set, you need to have a certain amount of visitors and traffic and conversions over time. As soon as you meet that quota, what you'll see is new suggested audiences appear, where you'll be able to gain access to those new suggested audiences based on propensity to buy. So that's a really kind of cool thing that just wasn't available previously. The other,
I've got a question for you. Is it possible to show everybody, say, an acquisition report or something like that with one of these audiences, so that they can see? Because one of the things I found when I was looking around was that I couldn't change today. If I looked at a longer period, some of the functionality, like being able to see it weekly or days and monthly, I couldn't see. So I'm just really curious to see some things that some people will be more familiar with, because some of the basic users will just be using it to sort of understand what channels and resource and sources and things like that. So, maybe looking at a longer period. So for example, in this screenshot you've got now, I don't know how to change that so you can see it on a weekly or a monthly basis. And that was the bit that threw me a little bit.
Yeah, so a lot of the reports. So one of the kind of limitations at the moment with GA4 is exactly that. Some of the limitations to just kind of basic reporting. So they've included all of this kind of additional functionality for getting new insights and new data. But some of the existing reports that you'd be used to in Universe Analytics are just a little bit harder to pull together. Things like day and week, for example, just aren't available in the standard reports at this point in time. We have to fall back to building them in the new analysis hub that I'll show you shortly. This is, for example, what we're looking at here is the user acquisition report. The other thing to mention is that there's no kind of concept of channels anymore. So GA4 doesn't include channel groupings anymore. So everything is split out by either source or medium.
Just explain what that is for some people.
So previously, the different channel sources, so whether that be traffic from Facebook, traffic from let's say traffic from social media, for example, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, that would have been bundled under a channel grouping of social. Okay. Then you'd have traffic from like search engines, Google, Bing, search traffic, that would be bundled under a channel of organic search. And then you'd have like paid traffic, like paid search traffic, and that would be bundled under paid search. Now you don't have the actual channel groupings, so everything's split out a little bit more kind of granular. So you only see stuff by source and things like medium.
So source, just to clarify, source would be Google, Facebook, but medium would be paid or organic or referral traffic. So what we normally do is we use them together to get so we can identify them, because sometimes the channel groupings were a bit wrong, weren't they? So you get something like paid social and end up in the PPC group where really you were looking for Google search. So it could be a bit clunky the way that it used to work.
Yeah, it could, but I mean, channel groupings were a valuable thing, and I'm sure we're going to see them back in analytics GA4 really soon. So that ability to be able to group and consolidate the different traffic sources under distinct headers, would be really useful. But at the moment, that's just not present there. So that's the kind of user acquisition report. You're seeing familiar metrics like users, sessions, engaged sessions. So you'll see a lot more like new metrics, things like engaged sessions. So visits to your website that lasted like longer than 10 seconds, or had a conversion event, or where someone had viewed more than 2 pages. So now it actually differentiates regular sessions, just someone coming to your website for the first time viewing 1 page, versus those users that actually like engage with your website a bit more. So that's really kind of helpful to see it like that.
And do you have control over what those columns are, and for example, has bounce rate gone? I read somewhere that bounce rate might have gone.
Yeah, so the pages report, which you can find in here, this is one of those kind of like the most limiting things in the actual kind of like content reporting. Things like content grouping, time on page, things like that are no longer there. Bounce rate also. Those metrics have gone for now. What you can do is you've got your events and conversion columns here. So the event column will basically list out all of the different events that you have in the account. So for example, if I wanted to report on landing pages, for example, so there's a landing page report doesn't exist as it did previously. So if I wanted to see top landing pages, I now need to come in and toggle this by session start. So this is what I mean by everything being event based. So I have to actually select I have to actually select the actual metric I want to see. So I want to see pages by session starts. And this is basically the equivalent to the previous like landing page report.
Entrances, yeah.
Yeah.
So because you can run both an old report and a new one at the same time, there'll be some things that are going to take a little while to set up. So you could refer back to the old one, couldn't you? But do we know whether the data matches? Because of course now we're sort of seeing, from multiple devices. So if you looked at the Annika one and you did a comparison of the number of sessions or page views in GA4 versus the other one for the same period, is the data very different?
The data in theory will be different because of the collection methods and also because of the configuration settings that are available. So I'll talk a little bit about the filters that you can apply to the account. So not all the filters that you would have had available to you in Universal Analytics will be available to you in GA4. So you might find that GA4 is collecting things that Universal Analytics just isn't collecting, whether that be for good or for bad. You will no doubt see discrepancies between the two. There's not really a great lot of kind of reports or stuff being written about the kind of main reporting discrepancies people are seeing right now between the two. My understanding from what I know is that there just would be because it's using a brand new data model.
Yeah. So I mean, the advice at the moment is to get both of them set up and start getting familiar with the new one, isn't it? Really, and then gradually you're going to move over because they will carry on improving it. They do that with all their platforms. They'll start off and there'll be a few shortcomings, and eventually it'll get to the stage when this is significantly better than the old one.
This is definitely something they're just going to kind of continue to invest in more and more. So like already you can see what they're trying to do. Like the framework is there, it's in place, and what they're working on is quite exciting. So you can kind of see where they're going with things. But the more you play around with the reports, the more it highlights some of the kind of like limitations and that you'd be used to. But certain things it will do really well.
Do you think you need somebody to help you set it up? Is it the sort of thing? Because I mean, I know how much time we spend on complicated accounts, setting up events and things. Do you think for the people that have got big sites, it's worth them getting some help, or do you think most of it they could do themselves?
So it depends what your level of skill competency is. So if you've been used to setting up events in Universal Analytics using Google Tag Manager, then all this is just a new schema. So they're basically like you've got a new pixel ID and you've got new event parameters. And new events to set up. So anybody that's been setting up events previously in Google Tag Manager, setting up events for GA4 is quite simple. For those that are just getting started for the first time, so what we've got is because time's getting on. Let me show you what you need to do to get set up. So initially, when you create a new property, you'll obviously have to give it a name. So this would be like your website. And you set a time zone, set the currency. There'll be some business information that it asks you. And you can just go ahead and fill that in or not.
That was one of the questions actually, was how do you set it up and do you need a new code? So I'm glad you're getting to do this bit.
And then at this point, it asks you to choose a platform. So whether you're using an app or whether it's for a website. So I would imagine a large amount of instances, people are going to be wanting it for web. So this is where you then set up your web data stream. This is where you put in your URL. You give it a name. You'll see that this enhanced measurement is automatically activated. So that's it's already been enabled. If you want to see what's actually being enabled, you can see the list just by clicking on the little icon. So obviously you want to be tracking page views. It's going to track scrolls, outbound link clicks. It's going to track site search. And what it's doing is it's tracking all of this automatically. But if you want to override any of the settings, you can do so. And it's up to you if you want these on or off. But the recommendation is to keep them on. So at this point, I would create the stream. It's going to give me a brand new measurement ID, and it's going to give me the tagging instructions for what I need to do. So it's going to give me, so I've got two options. I can either use the global site tag, or I can administer it through Google Tag Manager. So the recommendation is to use Google Tag Manager for GA4 setup. It's going to make your life much more easier. It's going to be far easier in the future when you need to be able to like update things and switch things and use the data for other tags. So if you're not using Google Tag Manager, look into it. We've run previous webinars on the subject of Google Tag Manager for anybody who wants to go back and recap. So we're not going to cover off to Google Tag Manager today, but that's the product you should be using. So once you've got those details, so once you've actually set that up, the key thing is your measurement ID. So I will show you how that actually looks in Google Tag Manager. So what you need to do is come into Google Tag Manager, and you're going to want to select the Google Analytics GA4 configuration tag. So there's a bunch of new GA4 tags you'll find in the Tag Manager list of tags to add. And at this point, it's going to ask you for the measurement ID. So this measurement ID is what you get from here. You'd enter in that measurement ID. There's a bunch of other things you can set. So for like advanced users that want to be able to, put in like additional kind of custom dimensions and send extra information in with that, you can do so. And this basically just becomes like the all pages pixel that's going to fire on your website. So you can basically call this like GA4 configuration tag. And you can set that to fire on every page. So you add the trigger all pages. Hit save. And what that will do, once you've actually pushed that live and published it, that will allow you to start collecting data straight off the bat. Allow you to collect data in your GA4 account. So that data will start coming in from that point. So once that's in place, you can go to your real-time reports, and you can see that information start to come in. So as soon as people start visiting the site, so if I start clicking around on the site, for example.
So for the people that have not used Google Tag Manager before and aren't familiar with it, it's basically a way of adding codes and containers and things from other platforms. So at the moment, when your analytics is set up, probably you've got your developer to add it. And if you wanted to say, go and set up Google AdWords, you'd have to go again and ask them to add it. And what Google Tag Manager does is it allows us to have a lot more control. So as Ed said earlier on, we have done webinars on that before. Another thing you've not mentioned at all is the reason why it gets around some of the new cookie and privacy and issues as well, and why that's going to be an advantage going forward.
That comes back to the default reporting identity. So this comes back to the cross-device capabilities that it has that I talked about earlier. So basically, Google's using AI, is using intelligence and the data that it has about users as they browse the internet, and it's using multiple kind of like data points to piece together the identity of an individual user. So that's why it's better able to understand how users are navigating across devices. So it does a much better job at tracking individual users as they move between devices, and it's doing all of this based off of Google Signals. So it's still using first-party cookies where available. So in that sense, it hasn't changed. It's still quite reliant on first-party cookies, but what it does now is trying to look for more signals and more indicators in order to tie together users and identify a single user. So it's improved on that front. So I was in Google Tag Manager just a while ago, and I showed you how to set up the base tag. So a lot of you will probably have conversions that you want to be able to set up. So you might want to be tracking file downloads. You might want to track signups or purchases and things like that. So I'm going to show you how you can do that. So if I just go back into my all events section, well, wait, all events down here under this section. So this is a very, like, they're giving you a lot more flexibility. It's a little bit more kind of complicated to do at first to set up a geo goal. So basically, if you want to be able to track like a thank you page or something like that on a particular page, what you can do now is you can take advantage of one of the existing events already coming into the account. So in this case, a page view. And what you will do is, if I show you an example of what we've got already.
A bit bigger again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, for example, I've got a conversion here of like blog article view. Ooh. Sorry, let me come back. So I clicked on the wrong thing there, bear with. So if you do the wrong click, it basically takes you to like a different section, so it's quite easy to click into things. Okay, so I'm just going to show you. Okay, so if I want to set up like a basic like thank you page goal, for example, I need to create it as a kind of custom event. So these are some of like the existing ones that I've put in place to date. So I've already got one here, which is blog article view. So I've given this a custom event name. So I've had to give it a name. And the conditions, basically, you have to set the conditions for it. Previously, this would be things like, page contains such and such. Now it's page location. First thing I need to do is make sure that this is firing on a page view event. So I need to specify that the event name is a page view. And then after that, I need to specify the page location. So if you're wondering what these events are, there is a whole list of different events in Google's documentation. There's already a bunch of automatically collected events that you'll be seeing in the account already. So, and with each one of these events, there'll be parameters being sent with it. So things like language, page location, page referrer, page title, screen resolution, they're all things available for you to be able to select. So in the case of setting up a conversion for a blog article view, I can just simply select it as the event name, it's as a page view, and I specify the page location. And what I'm doing is basically just putting in the URL of that page or the directory of that page, whatever part of that page I want to capture and have included as part of that event. So you can piggyback off of existing events, or you can basically create brand new events based on conditions and triggers that you create in Google Tag Manager. So, for example, if somebody submits a form, you can pass in a custom event into GA4 based off of that. So this is very similar to how events were sent in previously. So anybody used to that has been used to setting up events and conversion tracking in GTM previously for Universal Analytics, and this will be much the same. So this is basically an event tag. So we need to create. We need to select Google Analytics GA4 event tag. We'll then select the base tag that we created previously. You then give it an event name, and this is the event name that will appear in your reports. So this could be form submit, let's call it contact form, because this is specifically going to be contact form. If I want to include any extra information, such as like the form ID or any other information like that, I could easily append and include that information with it. But for now, I'm just kind of like going to leave it plain. So all I want to do is just push an event into GA4 when that happens. I've already got a trigger set up previously, so I've already got a trigger set up in Google Tag Manager for tracking inquiry forms. So my trigger is already there already, so this tag is good to go. I can just simply give it a name.
Ed, we've got quite a lot of questions, so when you've done this, I think, unless there's anything else you specifically wanted to share with the others, I think we need to answer some of the questions.
Okay, let's jump into the questions, because I think we'll be able to. I want to give people. Answers to questions they want, and it might be a better way for me to get onto some of the
I'll
features.
ask you the question. So the first question is there an indication of what the quotas minimum volumes are? So is there I'm not sure, that's Jav asking that. So is that related to the number of visits or something like that, do you think?
So the good thing about GA4 is it's the data in the standard reports doesn't get sampled. So you would have known previously, like if you're using Universal Analytics, if you've got over like 500,000 hits or a set amount of, if you've got so much data passing through in a certain period, what it will do is sample down the reports in order to basically like provide you with kind of the quick reporting. But what that does is strip out a lot of the data. So it's basically kind of sampling it down and only giving you like, 80%, 50%, 20% of your data based on the size of the amount of data that you wanted to report on. In GA4, it doesn't do that. So the sampling is not an issue. That's one of the great benefits about it. So the sampling issue isn't there.
Is there a maximum before you have to start going to 360 and paying? So
not currently. There's a bunch of individual collection limits that you can see in this document here. Things like.
Could you put the link for that in the actual chat so people can click on it, please?
Yeah.
So the next question is: will you need to run 2 tracking codes on sites going forward?
Yes, you'll want to do that. So you want to have your existing Universal Analytics running, and then you'll want to, in parallel, have your new GA4 property running in parallel as well. So yes, it's additional tagging. You're basically like dual tracking, which is like what we'd recommend, but that data is going to be going into the different properties. You're not going to see that data all mashed together in one report. So GA4 is not going to affect your existing account. So you don't have to worry about any new data going into your existing account. That's going to be handled separately. And again, whilst you can just paste the tag onto the site from GA4, Google Tag Manager is really like your best tool to enable you to do that.
So somebody's saying they've already got a third-party report. I mean, we use Data Studio, but Watergraph is the one that she's using. So you've effectively got to carry on with that one and duplicate your report, and then add a different source, haven't you? So you can't. You want to run them in parallel as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to exist as its own entity, its own separate property and data source. This is something you're going to want to kind of like keep on the side and observe and just dip into for certain bits of data. One of like the great areas that I wanted to show you was this new analysis hub. This is like particularly useful for anybody interested in doing page path analysis, creating like funnels. So this is all stuff that wasn't previously available and in Universal Analytics. So now GA4 is giving you the tools and the flexibility to create your own funnels. So you can create your own flexible reports directly within the GA4 analysis hub.
I had a question about e-commerce tracking, because when you added the code, you didn't do anything else. So does Google Tag Manager do that automatically, or do you have to do anything else when adding e-commerce tracking, or is that
good question. So just in the same way in which e-commerce tracking isn't tracked straight out of the box on Universal Analytics, if you want to set up e-commerce tracking in GA4, it's very similar, except for they've now given you a different schema to use. For those people that are running Google Tag Manager, e-commerce through Google Tag Manager currently, there's people that are doing that will basically need to remap the different parameters to match the new criteria. So again, I'm going to point you towards the analytics help center here, whereby they lay out all the different events that you need to send in to GA4 in order to get this stuff tracked. So you can see a lot of the kind of like the similar things that you would see before. So things like, view cart, add to cart, those events are still there. They need to be pushed in as events using Google Tag Manager. So the schema is different.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up the details of Leicester Digital Live. So if anybody wants to register for that, they've got the link, because I am conscious we've gone past 10 o'clock and we do tend to lose quite a lot of people at 10 o'clock because of they've got other things to go to, but we've still got quite a lot of questions. So we're going to carry on answering the questions. If anybody wants to sign up for Leicester Digital Live, this is on the 16th of February. There's actually 2 sessions. This is the advanced session with the suppliers and the guest speakers. And there's also an introductory session, but you'll get emailed about that anyway. But if you want to register for that, there's a link there. So I'm going to go back over to the questions. So Naomi asked, if you're using this with the older version, would you have input our goals on both platforms, or would one suffice? Basically, you're going to need to set up goals in both, aren't you? You can't use one without the other.
Yeah. So at this point in time, so if you just want to get started with GA4 and you just want to dip your toe into it, so you don't. And you're probably not going to be able to set it up like as comprehensively as you've got your existing universal analytics set up, because that's very much like established. There's a lot more configuration and things you can do in there that you can't do in GA4. So you're not going to be able to have the same level of, there's going to be certain things that you're not going to be able to track as well as you can do in universal analytics. So keep your universal analytics as your primary setup, but then in GA4, make sure you've basically got the basic tag on the site, so you're tracking all page view, you've got the enhanced events and everything's going. And then what I would do is, once you've done that, is start to look to introduce something like you kind of like the bigger conversion event. So if you're an e-commerce site, then look to get e-commerce set up. At the very least, make sure you're just tracking transaction counts, even if you're not capturing product details. If you're a website that has a lot of forms on the website, then make sure you're tracking forms, because you're better to have that data collected now. So going forward, you can start to have that data available in the account, so that when the tool evolves, you'll be able to, you'll already have the data in there to play with, and the audiences there that you can then build from. So just having the data collected in the first place will just enable you to be able to use the product and use the tool in a better way going forward. So yeah.
And people that haven't got the skills in-house, we're going to offer a low-cost option to help people set stuff up as well. So if anybody is interested, then the person to contact is Angela. I've got some more questions for you, because there's loads and loads and loads. Jamie asked, will we need to update the cookie privacy policy, or will compared with the previous GA properties, or would you just need to amend it slightly to say that you're using both?
That was a very good question. I would say that there would be a certain amount of, there would be a little bit of amendment tweaking on there, because of how GA4 now tracks with the introduction of Google Signals. To be honest, I would have to advise you just to fall back on the documentation notes on that one from the Google Help Center. But I would say that there would just have to be like a one-line change or something to acknowledge that you are using Google advertising technology, Google Signals.
Marco asked, is it possible to duplicate existing events and then customize? I'm guessing not. You're going to have to create them from scratch, aren't you, in GA4?
So
you can't import them from the old system.
No. Is that what he meant? Right. Okay. Yeah. So unfortunately, like those existing events that are coming in, they're going to have to be replicated again for GA4. If you've got those events being collected and sent via Google Tag Manager, then that will make the process a little bit easier. But it will still be a case of you having to create new tags for each event type. You're free to use the same event names, so you can use the same event names. But with all of this, everything's going to be kept completely separate. It's going to live in your GA4 account. It's not going to be transferable to your Universe Analytics. I mean, who knows? Maybe at a future date, there's going to be some kind of like nice kind of slick automated way to do like an import over of things. But I highly doubt it, just because of the way GA4 is just so different in the way it's been basically rebuilt. So I think that's highly unlikely. So yes, in answer to your question, it's a case of having to recreate those events again.
I'm not sure if Naomi's still on the webinar, but it would be useful if you could just maybe clarify. Can you create your own insights that are automatically run, or is it only Google's? So I'm guessing this is custom reports, maybe bringing in Bing data, maybe bringing in other data that she may be asking about, because I think Naomi's quite technical, but I'm not quite exactly what she means by that.
Yeah, so the insights that you get, like what we saw on like the homepage when you first kind of come into the account, these things are all automated, and at the moment there's no way to be able to kind of like tweak or override those. They're just kind of automated insights. It's hard to know whether that's going to change in future, whether there'll be kind of like, things you can specify to monitor to give you a little bit more control over actually what gets monitored and reported. That would actually be quite a kind of cool feature if they were to include that. But at the moment, it's just automated insights.
Okay. There was a few other questions in the Q&A session. So events replace goals. Well, you need an event to create a goal. What's the difference between a session and an event? Well, I explained that one, that one's the sort of the visit, and the events that the things that happen within that session. With audiences, can you separate out the users that just read the blog and don't visit the rest of the site? Yes, you can. You create automatically a segment, don't you? But that's instead of a view, because you would often create a view of just people that visited the blog. So how would you do that? If somebody's just responsible for the blog, you wouldn't create a stream from them, would you? You'd create just a segment.
Yeah, so it's a little bit kind of like a little bit of a kind of like murky area. So there's kind of two things you could do. You could either just like set up an event based on anybody that views the blog. So you basically kind of got like an event count, so you can see like a number of users, different countries and things viewing the blog like that. You would probably be best to create a new audience, similar to like what I created here. So based on all people that, viewed a page containing like blog, for example. And what you can do once you've got that audience created is you can actually choose to have that created into an event. So every time a user views the blog, it will actually send an event automatically. So you can create the audience first and have it ping an event into the events area as well.
So it's a little bit of getting used to the new terminology and the new way of looking at things, isn't it? A bit. I've got another one here for you. I have a GA3 tag within GTM. So basically he's already using Google Tag Manager for his current analytics to measure my website. What do I need to start using GA4 without using double counting GA3? Of course, we've shown you how to set it up now, but I think the double counting question is also quite important, because we do sometimes find we go onto a website and they've got two incidences of Google Analytics. So do you get any double counting or anything like that when you've got both GA4
because you're dealing with a separate property altogether, so it's kept completely separate. So you're not going to see that data merged with your GA4 data. It's either going to be collected via your old universal property, in which case you'll have your universal property and old report and account you can go into, or you'll have your new GA4 property account, in addition, which will be recording the same data, but they'll just be recording it separately. So at no point. Yeah, so at no point will that data all merge together, and so you're not going to run the risk of double counting or polluting anything if you want to get started with GA4.
Okay, somebody said Ismay obviously knows what she's talking about. She finds that her GA numbers don't match with her weblog statistics, site statistics, or PubStat stats. I mean, there's a number of reasons why they won't exactly match, won't there? Why analytics would be different. The results in analytics aren't going to exactly match up with your log files. So things like cookie blockers, JavaScript blockers, that sort of thing is going to mean that some people aren't going to be shown in analytics because the way that they are measured differently.
Yeah, that's right. The way individual users and hits are counted, there'll always be those differences. When looking at raw, web data.
Somebody's asking about slides. If you go back over to the Annika, I mean, there's a few slides that Ed has done, which we can add. I don't know how many there were. We can add that as a PDF on the Resource Centre. So if you haven't already been to the Annika site recently, there is a resource. It's resources and webinars. It's called the Resource Library. We're gradually adding the videos to all of that. But if you want to use that URL, I'll stick it in the text. URL there. It's basically in the main menu. What that means is you can go and it's not allowing me to do the main. It allows you to go and get any of the content of any of the previous webinars. So there's the PDFs there, and then we're gradually adding all of the old web. Yeah, thanks, Ed. We're adding all the old webinars in there. So when you go in there, you'll be able to click on the link inside there and be able to get this video as a PDF. So we'll upload that after the event. If you just click on that free webinar, Ed, then we can see. So at the moment, there's this sign up, but because this video, once it goes live, you'll be able to log in here and also get it as well. Okay, guys, thanks very much. If there's any more questions, if you wanna message Ed afterwards, or message Angela if you want some help with setup. It would be a paid service, but it's not going to try and make it as low cost as possible. So thanks very much, everybody, and speak to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye all. Thank you.
I'll call you, Ed.